Hi, and welcome back to Janine Crafts. This next series that I'm going to be working on is going to be about bead embroidery. And I had seen some videos about bead embroidery on Beadaholic, and I'll link their channel below. And I thought, I think I can do that. I mean, I've never really done any beadwork before to speak of. And this might have been a little bit of an ambitious project to start out for my first time, but the results turned out really well. I just made myself a beautiful book cover for a book that I have for an organization I belong to, and it turned out so beautifully. And I can't say it was very difficult. The concept of it and the execution of it wasn't terribly difficult. It was time consuming, and I did have to think carefully about the steps that I took to ensure that the project would look nice when it was done and to be sturdy, to be able to be a book cover to hold up to a lot of hand usage. Anyway, so I'm going to jump right in. I'm going to show you the basics of how I decided to make the book cover, the fabric and the reinforcement and such, and then the actual beadwork and the sewing of it and so forth. I hope you enjoy this series, and thanks so much for tuning in. Okay, the supplies that I'm going to need for this project is a piece of cloth, and what I found at my local Walmart, they had several of different types of fabrics that were already pre-cut into these, and they were for quilting and crafting purposes. So they're really just, it was perfect for the project that I'm working on, rather than trying to get a bolt of fabric and get just a small piece cut out of it. I just picked out a fabric that was going to work well for my project. It's just a simple white or off-white with a very simple little pattern to it. And again, rather than getting some interfacing cut, I just went ahead and bought a pre-cut piece, and I'm going to cut all the pieces I need out of this, and it's going to be perfect. I'm going to have a little bit left over. So this is the fusible interfacing. It's iron-on, and it is the extra firm, and because that's what I wanted for this project, because I want the finished project to have some weight and some stiffness to it. And then I purchased all of the seed beads I'm going to be using. These were $1.50 each for each tube, and they're 11/0 size seed beads. So I bought blue and a yellow, kind of a clear with a little bit of a gold foil in the middle, a gold, a red, and a green. And I just got some crafting thread. This is just a all-purpose, they call it dual duty thread, in an off-white. And then I purchased a pack of needles because this was the only pack I could find that had needles small enough for the project that I'm working on. And this is the basic outline that I'm going to be working with. I'm not going to be doing all the detailed work in the middle of the star. I'm just going to be doing just the points of the star, beading those in the different colors. And this is the book that I'm going to be covering. So the first thing I have to do is measure out my fabric and cut it to the right size. And as you can see, I'm going to have more than enough fabric to cover the book. So the first thing I need to do is measure my book, and it is about 8 1/4 inches long, and I'm going to need 2 more inches than that, because I'm going to need an inch at the top and an inch at the bottom for the purposes of hemming, because what I'm going to be doing is folding about a 1/2 inch in like that, and then folding another 1/2 inch, and then doing my seaming so there'll be no raw edges. And the next thing I need to do is figure out how the book is going, how long I'm going to need my piece of fabric to go around the book, and as well as have enough to have the book cover come in about that much on the book. And I'm going to have to add 1 inch to that again for the same purpose, to fold under and then fold under again for the hem. So the book is a little more than 5 1/4 inches wide, and then the spine is about 1/2 inch. So I'm going to have to take 5 1/4 times 2, and so that would be 10 1/2 inches plus another 1/2 inch for the spine. So it's basically 11 inches all the way around the book, and to that I need to add another, let's see, I probably want to go in about 2 1/2 inches plus another inch, so that's going to be another 3 1/2 inches per side, so that's going to add another 7 inches. So in total I'm going to have to cut the fabric 18 inches across to have enough fabric to go around the book as well as come inside of it. So those are my measurements, and I'm just basically going to measure that out on the fabric. And one of the things I noticed is one edge of the fabric is not straight, it kind of waves a bit, but the other side is fairly straight, so I'll be measuring up from that. And I'm just going to take a pin, and I'm sorry, I forgot what my measurement was. I think it was 8 1/2, 8 1/4 times 2, so I need it to be 10 1/4 inches. So I'm just going to go across the fabric marking 10 1/4 inches, and I'm just going to continue across making those marks. And once I get all my marks made, then I'm going to take the ruler like this and then just connect the dots, and then I'll have my line to cut my fabric on. And I'm going to do the same thing for this part of the book. I'm just going to measure across the fabric, make my line, and then cut my fabric out. And once I get done with that, I'll be back. So now you can see we have perfect size for our book. There's an extra inch on each side, which will be our seam allowance. And then by the time it's all put together, it's going to fit our book perfectly. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this interfacing out of the package, and I'm going to take the basic book measurement, in other words just the 8 1/4 inch and then the 11 inches to go around, because I don't want the interfacing in the seam work. Because what I'm going to do is, once the project is finished, well, no, before it's finished actually, after I get the seams done, or the hem all the way around, once I get that done, then I'm going to take, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. Once the project is completely done, but before I sew these edges for the book flaps, I'm just going to take the piece of interfacing, and I'm going to iron it, just a big rectangle of it across the entire project. And then I'm going to fold it over and sew my book flaps down. And that way it'll have a nice weight to the entire project, and it's going to cover all of my beadwork. But before I do that, I'm going to sew the hems down, and then I'm going to cut a piece of the interfacing that is appropriate. I'm just going to kind of eyeball it and cut it out so that it comes around my design in about, just a shape like that. And I'm going to iron that onto the fabric where I'm going to be doing the beading, so that the fabric will have more weight to it, and so that because the needle going in and out the fabric as many times as it's going to go in and out the fabric for the beading, it's going to need some reinforcement so that the fabric doesn't just start coming apart. So I'm also going to be doing some letters. So I'm going to put a piece of interfacing behind where the star is that I'm going to be beading, and I'm also going to cut some of the interfacing out that will cover the shape of the letters that I'm doing, and iron those into place where the beading is going to go, so that way the fabric will be reinforced and it will be able to stand up to that much needle going in and out of it. And then after I've got the beading complete, then I'm going to take the bigger piece of interfacing that's going to go over the entire project and iron it on so it will cover up all of my beading and all of my threading, which would be covered by the book anyway, but just it makes me feel better to have everything nice and neat, so that's how it's going to be. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead, and then when we come back to the next video, I'm going to show you the hemming process of folding it and then sewing it down. And then after that, I'm going to show you ironing on the interfacing for where I'm going to be stitching. And then we're going to actually get started with the beading.